Hi, I'm Julie from Spellbound, and I'm going to show you how to make this lovely beaded lampshade in all the colours of the rainbow. I'll be using an old lampshade frame and lots of lovely beads. I hope you'll join me. Now the first thing I'm going to do is look at the type of lampshade that is suitable for making a beaded design. Now I have sourced lots of these lampshades from charity shops, and you can obviously go out and buy a brand new lampshade or a lampshade frame, but the important thing is that it is supported on a proper metal structure that will support the beads that we're going to add on. Now this is a charity shop lampshade, and I think it cost me, £2. And we've got a metal ring at the top and a metal ring at the bottom. Most importantly, when I feel through the fabric, I can tell there's a metal rod here joining top ring to bottom ring. And as I go around, there's another one there I can feel, and another one there I can feel, and another one there. Now when I take the fabric away, I will reveal a structure underneath that looks like this. So you can see the top ring and the bottom ring, and they're supported by, in this case, 6 metal rods. And that makes a really substantial frame for us to bead. And that's going to give us 6 sections to do 6 different designs, if that's what we want to do, or we can make something continuous all the way around. Now that's really important. You will find that some modern frames, indeed most modern lampshades, are made like this. And this is a plastic coated in a fabric. It might be a very expensive fabric, but the plastic is stiff enough that they don't need those rods in between. So you've just got a ring at the top and a ring at the bottom, and there's no metal holding the top to the bottom. So if you take the fabric off, you're just left with a top ring and a bottom ring and nothing to keep them apart. Now we'll be using a frame like this. Later on I'm going to do another video to show you how to build a lampshade almost from scratch, and we'll be using the top ring from a lampshade like this. But for the moment we're going to go with this one here, which has got the ribs, and it makes for a really nice easy project. There's one more thing I need to point out. This particular lampshade is meant for a table lamp, so the ring to support the bulb is near the bottom. The bulb will sit here, and it will sit on top of a lampshade, on top of a lamp stand rather. If you want to do a ceiling light, you will need to have a lampshade either like this one that you can move from one position to another. So that's pushed down near the bottom. That's for a table lamp, or brought up, that's for a ceiling rose, so the light bulb will go in this space. Or you can buy them with just the ring near the top. So be careful what you're picking up. We're going to go with that one for now, and all I'm going to do is to get to this stage, from this stage, just use a pair of scissors and very carefully remove the fabric. Now we've got our frame. I've made sure there's no glue sticking on, because normally there's nasty glue top and bottom. I've removed that, and I'm quite happy to leave the frame white. You might prefer to spray it or paint it, but I think white will be nice to reflect the light when I add my beads. So I'm going to sort out my beads, and I'll be back to you to show you what I'm going to use. I've selected the beads I'm going to use for my lampshade. Now my lampshade, as you saw, has 6 distinct sections, so that means I can do one section in each of 6 colours to build up my rainbow effect. So I've got red, orange, yellow, green, a turquoisey blue and a purple. Now these are from the Spellbound range of mixed glass beads. So this is red press mix, orange press mix, yellow, green, turquoise and purple. Now I've gone for these mixes because they give me a lot of beads in toning shades of the same colour, and they're reasonably priced, so I get lots of numbers of beads, but also because there's a high proportion of transparent beads in there. Now when we're doing a lampshade, we want the light to transmit through the glass beads to sparkle, so I'd like a nice proportion of transparent beads. Having said that, I have supplemented the yellow, the orange, the turquoise and the purple with a few extra large faceted beads, just because I wanted a little bit of extra glitz on my lampshade. Now obviously using a bead mix gives you a good base, and then you can work in a few special beads, perhaps from your stash or something from an old necklace, or you might just want to use thrifted beads from the charity shop. But try to use transparent beads if you can in the main, because then when your light is on, they will transmit the colour around the room. Now in addition to the glass beads, I have some wire. This is the only other basic material you need. Now this is 0.5mm diameter wire, and it's of a soft temper, so I can easily wrap it, bend it and twist it back on itself. Now 0.5 wire will hold a nice line supporting a bead. Anything thinner will tend to snap and snag. Anything thicker, and you're going to find it difficult to wrap it neatly around the rods that make up your lampshade. Now the only tools we're going to need are some wire cutters, and we might need a pair of flat nose pliers or chain nose pliers just to help us finish off any snaggy ends. Right, that's all we're going to need. So I'm going to clear the decks, choose a colour to start with, and I'll be back to you soon. I'm going to start with the red section on my lampshade. Now pick a section, do it red, the next one will be orange, then yellow, green, etc. Now I've cut some wire from my spool. This is 0.5mm soft wire, and on a reel you'll find there's approximately 25 metres, which will be sufficient to do a lampshade this size. Now for my first piece of wire, I can use quite a long bit, because I'm going to join it on in the middle of the wire and use both ends to do the beading. Now you don't want to cut anything that's too long for you to manage. I would suggest 1 metre to 1.5 meters each time is more than sufficient. You can join it as you wish. But for this first one, I'm going to go for a piece that's about 2 meters long, which will give me 2 1-meter ends. So I've cut my piece of wire and I've found the middle. Now I need to join it onto the frame, and I want to join it onto a position where I can anchor it so it won't slide around. And that means I'm going to go for a junction, either the bottom junction here between the ring and the upright, or the top junction between the top ring and the upright. I'm going to go for the bottom one, and I'm just going to, that's the middle of the wire there, I'm just going to wrap one way along the bottom ring, and I'm going to go up the side junction as well, the side wire rather, and now that's firmly fixed, it can't slide back and forth. That's quite important for your first bit of wire because you need it firmly anchored. Right, I'm doing red for my first section, so I'm going to pick up a relatively substantial bead. What I want to do is divide this up by putting a zigzag of wire across, which will subdivide this big area here into smaller zones. So this is the end of the wire I'm going to be using. I need to thread my bead on. I'm going to stretch it across to the other side of this section and I'm going to fasten it off. Now I'm not pulling excessively hard on the wire. You can see it's still got a little bit of give in it. I don't want to deform this and I don't want to snap this wire. What I'm going to do later on is come back and join onto this wire again, and it will pull it slightly to the left or the right, and that will give us more of a mesh effect rather than straight lines with beads attached. Right, now we're going to do the next one back across the section. So I'm going to go for another relatively large bead. Back across the section and wrap it around the frame. Now that's round once, or half a time actually. Need it to go around 1.5 times. So we've now got two smaller sections, 2 beads on. I'm going to create the third section by coming back across. There we go. So that's half a turn around and then another turn. So now we've got 1, 2, 3 zones and 3 beads on, and I can put on a 4th bead and that will give me 2 more zones. I'm going to join this onto this junction here just to anchor it. So I've gone around the upright wire and around the ring at the top. Right, so we now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 smaller sections from one big area, and we've got 4 beads on. Now I can start working my way back down or back up with the other end of the wire to add more in. I'm going to start by going down. I don't want to come directly from this corner, so I'm just going to wrap along the top there to about halfway along. There's no right or wrong to this, it's just what suits the beads you've got really. So let's have a look for, I'll go for a little red one like that. Thread it on. And now instead of joining onto the main frame wire, I'm going to join onto the wire I've just attached. Now I'm going to attach about here. I'm going to attach it straight onto the wire by wrapping around 1.5 times. Now before I do that, I can choose to trap that bead above the join or below it. I'm going to say below on that one. And join it on. Right, now I can choose a different direction. I think I'm going to go in that direction. And let's have a relatively large bead. Let's go to about here, and again I've got the choice of pushing that bead up or letting it fall down for the moment, and to twist onto there and pull through. Right, now as I pull on the wire, you can see that this original straight wire has now got a little bend in it, and that takes it away from looking like a zigzag. Right, now then, I'm going to go to about here, I think, and perhaps a slightly different sort of red. I've got these hearts, which are quite nice. Stretch across to there and twist on. There we go. You can see it's dividing up the spaces. Now in this case I want to push that one up a bit. So let's add a bead on. Now I'm going to push that one up and join on to this wire here. And because this bead is going to run down again, it's going to clash against that bead there, the one I've just added on. So at some point I'm going to join on to this wire here and push that bead up out of the way. Right, and let's go down on to base, perhaps into this anchoring position here. That would be quite useful. Now, as you can see, I'm mainly putting on larger beads at the moment just because I want to start to populate the space with colour, and then I can see where I'm getting to. Right, now we're going to go back up again. I'm going to use the same wire. Now I'd quite like to go back on myself to hold that bead up. But if I do that, this is going to compress. You can see it sliding back. So I'll have to come back another time to do that. I'm going to go across the diagonal here. Twist on. Now I can twist onto the frame here. This is a great way to use up old necklaces, especially if you've inherited something that you love the beads but it's not your style. Why not do something like this, and you can look at the beads every day. So right, now I can think about trapping this bead further up so it doesn't run into this bead here. I'm going to push it up. I'm going to attach to that wire there. So you can see that bead no longer comes down and sits against this one. Now those spaces are a bit cramped at the moment, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back across this way. As you can see, there's no real rules to it. It's just a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and see if you like what's happening. Now this is a different sort of bead. This is a bead that's only threaded across one edge. So I need to give it enough space to populate that space. So I'm going to twist off there. You can see we're already starting to come down to smaller spaces, and that original zigzag line has very much started to blend in. There it is, it goes across there, there, there and there, but you can already see it's taking a bit of a wander, and we're getting this mesh filigree effect rather than straight lines. As you start to reduce down the volume of each space, you'll find moving on to smaller beads like I have there, which fits in that little gap, works rather well. Now I want to move that bead away from the edge, I think. Or do I? No, I don't, because that's already quite a big bead, so I'll go in between. And again, I'll go for a relatively small bead in comparison to the ones I've been using up to this point, and I'm going to twist onto that one. Now there is a temptation once you start getting quite a few wires on to skip across one and connect to something else. I would suggest you don't, because then you get lots of loose wires on the surface. You want this surface to be nice and smooth and with no catches on it. So an opportunity for quite a sizable one there, I think that one. And then I can go across and join onto this wire here. That's a different shape than I was expecting, so join onto this one. One for the top. Oh, I've got a little heart. There we go. As you can see, I'm coming towards the end of the wire. I want to find a convenient position just to leave it for the time being, and then I'm going to pick up this end and start weaving with this one. I'm just going to do the same procedure. Moving up and across to fill in the gaps. Now when I've filled in a few more and I've got a couple of ends to finish off, I'll show you how to finish them off. I'll be back in a moment. So as you can see, I've been quite busy. Now this is just that 2 metre piece of wire, and when you left me I'd got a spare end at the top and I had a long end at the bottom, and the long end has gone up and down and around, and at one point I found myself in this top corner with nowhere to go, so I actually started on the next section round, which is going to be orange. And that gave me the opportunity to go across and cut back down so I could start again here, rather than having to wind all the way down the frame to get myself out of a pickle. And that's quite a useful little trick. I nearly had to do it on this side as well, and that would have meant starting on purple, because the order is going to be red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. So I'd had to add a purple bead if I wanted to do the same thing on this side. But as it is, the top part is now pretty much finished on this section. I've got a few little gaps down here, but the top half is pretty much there. As you can see, all the little zigzag that was originally there has been completely distorted, and we now have this sort of interwoven mesh, a bit like a street map. Now, at no point does a wire cross behind or in front of another bead. They're always ever only going across a space, and that gives you this nice light feeling. If you end up having extra wires going behind things and in front of things, you'll find that it looks visually very heavy and it looks a little bit confused. So try to keep it so that, if you like, the beads are the buildings and the wires are the roads in between, and you never have a road going straight through or straight behind a building. Now I've come to the point where I've got 2 relatively short ends of wire that I need to finish off. I've got one just here, and that's the original one there, which I've wound back a little bit because I needed some space. Now I need to finish off the wire. Now the thing with a wire, certainly a soft wire like this, is no matter how close you cut it, you can't get a really satisfactory finish that doesn't leave a burr. So we're going to cheat. I'm going to find a space next to a bead. Now that bead is going to fall down onto that space. Now if the bead had got a big hole, I could hide the wire end inside the bead, but it doesn't. So I'm going to have to finish it off here nice and neatly. Now the best way to do that is to work hardened wire by making the wire stiffer until it's brittle and it breaks. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pinch the wire exactly where I want it to break. That's this end of the wire here. I want to finish it there, and I'm going to start rocking backwards and forwards. And it's snapped. And there's no burr left there at all. The wire is broken as close as possible to where my thumbnail was, and that bead's going to fall down and cover the space. I'll do the same here. Now I need to find a similar sort of position, so I'm going to come down to that junction there. It's easier to hide the finish against one of the wires of the same gauge rather than the frame itself. I'll just make that space a little bit narrow, that's better. Right, it's twisted on there. I need to just take it round again. At the moment it's just hooked. I need to make sure it won't come undone. Right, that's where I'm going to finish it off. So, get my thumbnail in and start to wiggle. And it's just, you can turn it around like that, or you can wiggle it backwards and forwards, and that's broken. No end to be seen, no end to be felt. Right, I'm going to join a new piece of wire on near the bottom to fill in these gaps. So I'm going to do similar to before. I'm going to cut myself 1.5 meters this time rather than 2 meters. And this time I'm going to find a position about 50 centimeters in from the end, which is about there. And now I can join this on anywhere I like, but I want the long end, which is this side, to go towards the orange section, and the short end to finish off these gaps. So I'm going to go to this anchoring position here and twist it on, and this side that's going to go towards the orange, which is longer. I need to get that attached as well so it doesn't slip. And now I've got a 50 centimeter piece to finish this cap. I'll be back in a few moments when I've finished it off and you can see the effect. Now I've finished the red section and it's really quite tight. There's no give in it as such, and if I turn it that way you can see it's nice and smooth that way, and it's also nice and smooth on the inside. It's really important nothing sort of protrudes inwards towards the bulb, obviously. Right, now I need to do the next section, which will be orange, and I'm going to show you that in the next video, where you'll have a little bit of stop motion where it says this is the red section, orange, etc. And then I'll show you how to add a fringe to the bottom if you want. So that's all for now. I'm going to go away and do some beading, and hopefully you'll join me in the next video to see what it looks like when it's all complete. Thank you for joining me. Bye for now.